Hi guys, welcome back to Golden Reviewer. Here I have the POCO F3 and POCO F3 GT. They are targeting the similar range, but the POCO F3 is more like a daily device, while the POCO F3 GT is said to have been especially optimized for gaming purposes. The POCO F3 has Snapdragon 870 processor, while the POCO F3 GT has the Dimensity 1200 processor. Today we are going to test the Genshin Impact gaming performance of these two devices, and let's get straight into it. So as you can see, I've set everything to highest possible. This is just to control the variables. I'm not saying that you should play the game and everything set to high, and most likely you shouldn't, right? But this is just to try to stress these devices to their limits and also make the results comparable across all my tests. Okay, so I'll actually play the game at this Inazuma area for about 10 minutes. I'll try to use the same playing style, and during the gameplay, I'll show you the real-time FPS and power consumption from these two devices. So if you are interested, you may watch the full gameplay, otherwise you may skip to the end of the video where I'll show you and compare the full results from these two devices and also give my 2 cents about how they perform in this game. Okay, without further ado, let's go.
收必去。
别想逃开哦，在这儿哟。神力眼，双逆，旋风飞，
尽收必去。
旋风飞，
好险！
阴吹雪。
有两下子。
留意脚下。
往哪儿逃？固若金汤。
该走攻击了。
就这个。
起舞吧，拿下。
找。尽收必去。
我听到你，拿下了。无礼者退下。起舞吧。哟呼！永不亏负。雪纷飞。阴吹雪。
尽收必去。
失礼了。起舞吧。阴吹雪。起风了。一起来玩吧。雪纷飞。起舞吧。
安如磐石。
有大家在身边。失礼了。拿下。
Okay, now let's take a look at the FPS result. The result is actually very interesting. If you watch my previous test of the POCO F3 GT, you might have known that this device actually limits the Genshin Impact game FPS to 50 FPS max. I think this is a careful decision from Xiaomi that they really tested the game on this device and they find the sweet spot of this device running the game. So at 50 FPS, the device FPS is much more stable, and the power consumption and also the heating, all these are within a proper range. So as you can see here, the FPS is restricted to 50, and after the device get a bit hot, it dropped to 45, and in the end it dropped to 40. So there is a gradual decrease in FPS. And I think that's how Xiaomi or POCO is handling this game. It's something built into their system, okay? But on the other hand, the POCO F3 does not have this mechanism at all. So the game will try to run as high FPS as possible. So you can see that sometimes it reaches 60 FPS, but actually the device is not able to maintain 60 FPS. So in the end, you get a lot more fluctuations. But one thing we need to understand is that overall the Snapdragon 870 is still a more powerful and more efficient SoC than the Dimensity 1200. So the average FPS on Poco F3 is actually higher at 45. But because of the special gaming optimizations, I think the Poco F3 GT actually provides a more pleasant gaming experience because the FPS is more stable. You don't have sudden, very laggy moments. Overall, it's not super smooth, but it's very reliable and it's a stable experience. And I think that's a perfect example of how system optimization can improve your gaming experience on the same hardware. Okay, and let's move on to power consumption. And we see extremely similar numbers here. Both are at around 5.7 watts. And this also proves my point that the Snapdragon 870 is actually more powerful and more power efficient than the Dimensity 1200 because they use the same amount of power, but the average FPS on 870 is actually higher. And now I really hope that the Poco can actually bring the optimization from the Poco F3 GT to Poco F3. Maybe just restrict the FPS to something like 50 or 45 and let the device run the game at a more stable pace rather than these so-called fluctuations in frame rate, right? I think I can accept a lower average but a more stable frame rate. Alright, so that's all for this video, and thanks guys for watching. See you next time.